If you're looking for a comedy, anime has a decent amount to offer. Shows like Psyche K placing us in some of the most creative and comedic scenarios through its psychic and pretending to be uncaring protagonist. Nichijou with some of the greatest slapstick, absurdist humor of any anime. Love is War, a hilarious romantic comedy. The Devil is a Part-Timer, which is pretty good, for the first season at least, like One Punch Man. Dr. Stone, which isn't as focused on comedy as other shows that I've mentioned, but it's definitely a persistent part of the series. Spy Family is a pretty fun one as well, and Konosuba is one too if you're into that sort of thing. However, in this video we're going to be talking about one of the greatest comedy anime you've never heard of, or at least never realized that it's a comedy anime, and that's because it's not one, but Crunchyroll seems to think it is. ReZero is not a comedy anime. I mean, it has jokes within the show and between the characters, but it would be incredibly odd to consider it a comedy. If you've watched the show, you might be thinking, why would anyone be stupid enough to think it's a comedy anime? And to answer that question, we need to get deeper into an enduring problem that the public perception of the series faces. For one, confusingly enough, as I mentioned before, the Crunchyroll website considers ReZero a comedy anime. Please tell me, if you watched ReZero, what genre would you place it under? Mystery? Definitely. There's tons of intrigue, and a huge portion of the story is based on ones that haven't been resolved to this day. Action? Yeah. Although it's not the forefront of the series, a part of the most climactic portions of the story are action-focused. Drama? Of course. The show is so heavily focused on its cast and their development. Fantasy? That one's not really a question, of course it is. Thriller? Yeah. ReZero has no shortage of horrific, terrifying moments of either psychological or physical torment. But comedy? Really? I mean, don't get me wrong, this show makes me laugh quite a bit, but there's absolutely no focus on that. It's structured entirely differently from what an actual comedy anime would be. Also, I know people absolutely despise Crunchyroll, and for many great reasons, but for many, this is the sole official way to watch the show, in certain regions. This isn't necessarily a rule, but comedy anime usually focuses more on non-diegetic jokes, which are jokes from the viewer's perspective. Let me give you some examples. In episode 6 of Nichijou, we're provided with an absurd scenario of a deer within the school's courtyard. This is an ultimately silly scenario in which our expectations for what's going to happen get subverted several times. The joke is built upon layers and layers of absurdity. But the main reason I chose this scene in particular is because Yuko is viewing the scene as well. However, she is within the story. Rather than laughing and pointing out all these absurdities, she is genuinely confused. The scenario wasn't a joke for her, it was a joke for us. That's the main difference here. While ReZero has its jokes, Ram calling Subaru Barusu, Subaru teasing Otto,
who exactly is your friend Denise?
A majority of them are diegetic, contained within the story. They're not crafted scenes where each aspect of them construct a joke. They're character interactions. Even some of the scenes where you may consider them to be non-diegetic jokes, like the part where Ram points out
that sorry thing,
or when Subaru seemingly breaks the fourth wall, are tied to plot devices, with the Ram scene and preceding Roswell scene to show how Subaru feels emasculated, and the fourth wall break scene to show how Subaru believes himself to be the main character of a classic fantasy story, despite his actual situation. But let's say a series does include some not so necessarily plot-relevant diegetic jokes. We then have to ask the question, does the genre of comedy fit the ethos, the spirit and feeling of the show? Let's look at Attack on Titan for an example of having a non-diegetic joke, while still obviously not being a comedy anime. The portion of the episode starts with Jean complimenting Mikasa's hair. Then, moments later, Eren tells her it's getting too long, and she says she'll cut it. We're then met with a sillily serious expression on Jean's face. Then he proceeds to randomly wipe his hand on Connie, with Connie then asking, the joke is for us, not the characters. Yet, when you look at the rest of the series, it's pretty obvious that it's not a comedy anime. The clear answer is, just use your brain. Would a reasonable person deem that a core part of ReZero that needs to be included within the genre section of the show is a comedy? And for that, I honestly don't see how they would. Just on a little side note, if you're enjoying the video thus far, you should subscribe. I have a lot of ReZero focused videos, some more opinionated like this one, but others on the more analytical side. If that piques your interest, then stick around. The main issue that this culminates in is the public perception of the series. In a meta sense, this is pointed out in Isekai Quartet by Kazuma saying, it's not a harem story, when Subaru describes his world. There's a clear dissonance between what people view ReZero as and what it actually is. At least for the people who haven't watched or read it yet. Although some people who actually have watched it still have this view, somehow. This video is sort of linked to my marketing one, but I wanted to get deeper into what specific problems it's actually causing. Key visuals like this, while serviceable, and let me make this clear, I 1,000,000% respect how engaged the artist, Sagawa, is with the community. However, in my opinion, it doesn't tell you anything about ReZero, and it's just basic. This isn't even this visual specifically, but damn near most of them, save for this one in season 1. This just communicates so much more, and it's not just a Marvel poster showing off all the characters, but a beautiful illustration of tragedy and loss, capturing some of the core themes of episode 15. I also actually really like this Lost in the Memories one. People can say don't judge a book by its cover all they want, but that's literally the point of these artworks. ReZero has soul. It has identity. And I believe it's damn well one of the best shows out there. But how could anyone possibly know that from stuff like this? I really want to clarify this again. I place no blame on the illustrators, because I highly doubt that they're able to pursue the entirety of their creative vision. Okay, I will blame Otsuka though. I just think he kinda sucks most of the time, even though I like some of his art. Unlike Otsuka, other illustrators actually care enough to not blatantly exclude details. To take a little step back, I'm not trying to be rude, but there's more than enough reasons to complain about Otsuka. Another thing is figures. Now, I know I've talked about this before, but I'd like to take a deeper level of analysis. Take a look at this Guts figure. Aside from obviously his character design, doesn't it perfectly communicate the tone of the manga? This may be a little bit of an unfair comparison, and I absolutely don't think there's anything wrong with having cuter figures. But again, there's this stark dissonance between ReZero's figures and its story. People may not know what ReZero is, but its figures are nearly everywhere. They're very common, and if you ask anyone, hey, what do you think this show is about? They'll say it's like a romance or something, and I really couldn't blame them. ReZero is far, far, far from the only victim of this, as of course, shows are going to sell their most marketable characters, but doing so without having at least something that genuinely represents a story just feels so disrespectful. That's not to put words in anyone's mouth, because although the author has expressed his desire for more unique figures of other characters, he still probably loves all the other ones anyway. But I hope you understand what I'm saying. During the process of editing my video, they've finally done it. While I wouldn't exactly say my complaining is a moot point, and they should certainly still continue to do this in the future, regardless, we're going to be getting figures that actually represent the story, at least to a more accurate degree than the figures we've already had thus far. Maybe it's important that ReZero subverts expectations when people finally decide to watch it, but I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people who would be interested in the show who are turned away because of how it's presented. In all seriousness, there's a part of me that wonders whether this stuff genuinely matters. This sort of thing doesn't change my enjoyment of the show. I mean, I would prefer cooler key visuals, of course. But I don't really think that this stuff that causes miscategorization impacts the show itself. Does it actually matter whether ReZero gets more popular than it is? I mean, yeah, I would love it if more people appreciated the show, but I honestly think, even though it'll take a while, that we'll eventually see a nearly complete adaptation of the source material, based on the popularity of the show as of now. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing, leaving a comment, and liking the video. And maybe checking out some of our others, as you'll probably like them as well. Although it's not the only thing I make videos for, I make a ton of ReZero content. And with the next season coming around this spring, I think I could give you something to watch in the meantime, and while it's airing. So stick around for more.